Part 4. So this is another style of French cleat tray, but in this case these sections are removable, so I just built this with enough room that I can get a finger in it to pull these out. And these are just little vials that I store things in. Like I found a dead porcupine once, and I thought it'd be fun to take some quills home, and they say that they're hooked on the end, so I put these under a microscope. I didn't see hooks under a regular microscope. Maybe they're hooky under an electron microscope, but I didn't see it. And then this one has the inside of the innards of a fish's stomach. I caught a bass once and it was full of crayfish arms, and these were way more colorful when I got them. They've been kind of bleached out, but it's just kind of crazy how many crayfish arms that this particular fish had eaten. And this is a bunch of little tiny praying mantises and leeches and just weird stuff that I wanted to save that are kind of fun to show with little kids and stuff. So this is on my wall just as a place to store little samples to share with people and kind of educate a little bit. So this cleat here is a shelf that's at a 30-degree angle. It holds a tape dispenser, and that just keeps it on the wall for when you need to grab that. Left enough room so my hand could go around it. And these are just guides to keep it in place. And just took a piece of 6-inch plywood and cut it at a 30-degree angle out of a square, and was able to use those two sides of it to flip onto there. Put a French cleat on it, and that hangs right up. Sometimes I'm wearing safety glasses, but I'm always wearing prescription glasses, and they are always getting dirty, so I'm always going for glass wipes to get those nice and clean again. But they were always in a drawer before, and they were kind of inconvenient to grab, so I made another dispenser. And this one again has enough space so I can get a thumb in there, and I made it kind of, this might be a little bit too big, but it works pretty good for reaching in and grabbing a glass wipe. I get these from Walgreens. They're the Zeus brand ones. Just cut this out so it's big enough for these to fall in there. They drop down, you can pull them out. That thing sits on a cleat and you can grab a glass wipe. I'm always taking these with me for running to the movies, or if I'm going to a restaurant or something. My glasses are always dirty, so I take a couple of those, stick them in my pocket, and I put these right by the door for when you're heading out. So you can grab your glasses and your wipes. So this is a whiteboard, and I just basically took two-sided Velcro and taped a French cleat onto it on the top and on the bottom there. And this whole thing can be French cleated onto the wall. Gives me a place to maybe draw some plans or to tell my kids some assignments. This one's got the little dots on it, so you can create a grid on it and draw out what you're working on, just so kids have an idea of what you're about to do. I need to be better at that. They complain that I don't tell them what we're working on enough, so this I will have to use more. And it's nice if it's magnetic, because then you can put magnetic posters and stuff up. Like this just talks about screws, which is kind of nice. So this is like a ladder hook, just a regular piece of hardware. I put it on a really long length of wood so that I can hook the levels onto it. There's enough room here to actually hang 3 levels. So I've got my 6-foot, a 4-foot, and a 2-foot that can all be on this at the same time. I put 2 cleats on it so it is a little bit more, so it doesn't want to swing at all. And that hangs on there real nice and holds all the weight of 3 levels and keeps those out in a spot where I can get to them easy when I need them. So this one is a paper towel dispenser. I ran screws up into I cut these at the right angle. I think I put them at about 30 degrees so I could hold 2 rolls of paper on them. Blue paper towels and white paper towels. And that makes it real nice to keep them up off the ground. This is another one of those where I built it wrong the first time. I put the posts up here, and again I wanted to pull them forward, but by dropping the center of gravity way down to here, these actually roll real nice. You can get as many as you want, tear it, and not have any problems with it. So this shape works really well. Then down at the bottom French cleat, I have using 2 pieces to hook it onto there, just so it would space out over the bottom cleat. But this way I have a power strip that gives me the length of the workbench. You don't want to plug anything really high power into a power strip. So like an air compressor or something that draws a lot of juice, like a table saw or something like that, you want to plug those straight into the wall. Long extension cords and power strips tend to starve the tool, so they don't get enough power. And it's hard on the tool, but it's also a fire hazard, because if it gets too hot on the connections to the wires, that can actually catch fire. So on this, I basically do chargers, and low power LED lights and stuff are plugged into mine. But it's real handy to have a spot to plug into when you're working here. Most of my stuff's battery powered, so I'm not plugging too many things into it. But if I have a soldering iron I'm going to use, that's kind of high wattage. Anything gets really hot or uses a big motor, I tend to plug those straight into the wall. So I do have a spot. Right now I've got something plugged into it, but in the wall I can go straight to the wall instead of the power strip. But that's great for low voltage plugins. So this also makes for a little shelf to keep yardsticks and rulers. And then I have a longer yardstick down here that's like 6 feet long. So you can pull this off and it can become part of the desk. If you're doing a lot of repetitive cuts, that's just right there to lay out and use. Then I have a silver one on the other side, but that comes in real handy when you just are measuring something short over and over again, or doing something along those lines. So in some cases, you've got to move some tools to get at something. I don't adjust my sprinklers very often, but when I do, this can open up. And this used to be pegboard, and the pegboard was cut out, and this was set into the wall behind the pegboard. But this is nice, because this is a really old timer. Maybe it'll last forever, I don't know, but the thing's got to be 30 years old now. It's an old mechanical sprinkler timer. I don't really want to change it out until I really need to, but it's nice now if I ever do need to change it out. This is just on a French cleat. I can just pull the wires out of it, wire in a new electronic timer, and go from there. But until this thing fails, I'm just going to keep using it, and it keeps watering my yard. So right here above my whiteboard, I keep all my squares and measuring tools. So I took a piece of plywood and I cut a bunch of slits into it. So the heavier squares needed to be cut more than once, so it was a wider slit. But all the smaller things, like your angles and your 90s, those all fit into just one table saw cut. So that's one blade width for all these things to fit in there, other than the bigger squares. But that just fits up there. That's on a French cleat. I left the middle of it's open so I can cleat up underneath it, and I built these down so that they will hug the sides and still create the framework I need to hold that much weight up. It's really not that heavy, but I'm kind of tall, and I put my two longer angles just on the edge so they're out of the way. So I used that for the back space. But it puts it at a height where I can reach all these, but it's out of the way, and that makes all those tools be in a good spot for me. So this is my shop computer. It's on wheels. I bought this workbench just because it had a drawer in it. I just really like this setup. Put it at a good height so it's a standing computer. But behind it I had some empty space, so I put French cleats all along this wall so I can put some things behind this. I keep my stage lights below this, so there's a space for those. But then I built this French cleat, and it's probably the heaviest one I built that's actually cleated and not bolted into the wall. It's just a big box. It sticks out about a foot, and it's on a top cleat, and the bottom comes down over the second cleat to give it plenty of stability. So the taller the spaces from your cleat to the bottom of your back piece, the more stable it is. Or like on this piece here, it comes down and covers a second cleat. So my whole system is based around a 6-inch piece of wood that's cut down the middle at a 45-degree angle. Each of these has a 3.5-inch gap so that the cleat can fit up over it. So you can make those smaller and space them accordingly. But for me, I thought this was going to be plenty strong with a construction bolt every 6 inches. And that holds this up, and it appears to be plenty strong. It keeps these are metal pieces for soldering on, and some of the desk stuff. My soldering system is all up here along with some camera stuff. But this shelf turned out really nice, and I'm happy with how it works out. And I did it just at the right height to extend my windowsill, because sometimes the bird will fly over here to look at the birds outside. So it makes a little landing. This is his landing zone, so he can go out there and he just watches the outside birds through the window, which is kind of fun. But then he starts to chew on stuff, so he can't be up there too long before I have to move him. So this is his safe place. And you can also put your clocks on French cleats. I put a cleat up way high just so I can move signs and stuff around. That seems to be the best place to keep a clock. My daughter gave me the whatever time clock. That's kind of fun just because sometimes I'm working at 2 in the morning and she thought that was hilarious and she got that for me. So I put it up next to the regular clock. That was my last French cleat video, and I'm going through withdrawals. My son says I have an addiction. I'm not allowed to make any more French cleats, so you won't be seeing any more French cleats on my channel. That is the end.